Everyone, welcome to another new episode of Women of Community Banking podcast. Friday afternoon, both of us are almost looking forward to end the day, but starting discussions, it's not that easy. I have meetings till 6:30, so that's how way life is. But we've got Jimese with us today. Hi, Jimese. Firstly, thank you for taking your time out to talk to us today, and for being in the podcast. Thank you for that.
Hi, Anurag. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm delighted to get the opportunity to speak with you.
My pleasure. Quick introduction who Jimmy is. She's a very well known, I would say, credit union executive across credit unions, spent some years in filing, then queues. Now back to Harborstone again. So Jimmy is someone who has almost more than 2 decades. She's dedicated 2 decades in the credit union movement. Started from being a teller to right now being the chief community engagement officer at Harborstone. So that same journey. I mean, I love covering these journeys. Teller to sea level in credit unions. That's what my sweet spot is. I love talking about these journeys. Similar journey. That's what she has. This is an amazing conversation that I hope to have today, Jimmy. And again, thank you for joining us for the podcast. Let's start. Maybe the first obvious question is, let's talk about your journey. Let's peel the onion a bit. Let's talk about what made you join credit unions in the initial days, and what keeps you going till now.
It's so unique. I didn't seek credit unions. I think, like most people, I stumbled upon it in a way. I applied for a job as a marketing specialist, I think it was. And in applying for that job, I learned that the hiring manager for that job actually attended the university that I attended. The job had been filled, but I was offered a teller role. And, the idea to invest in me and get in the company, learn more about it, that's how I stumbled upon credit unions. And somewhere between the teller line and the C suite, I fell in love with credit unions, right? I got the opportunity as a teller and a new accounts person to work on what's considered the front lines. And for me, my credit union at the time, America's First, was 6 floors. And so I looked at it as though my job was to understand what was going on all 6 floors and make sure that I created the community inside for people to trust us and know that I was connecting them with the right people. And so, as I progressed through working in lending, working in new accounts, working in marketing as philanthropy and community relations manager, I eventually just got this love for the industry after crashing the GAC with the Filene Research Institute. So I was a crasher. Yes, I know how to have fun. But through that process, it just deepened my love for credit unions and my love for giving. So I spent some time, traveling the country with Filene and talking about all of the wonderful research that they were bringing about and all the wonderful resources that are there for credit unions. And lastly, spending time at Q's, just really pouring myself into talent development. That, I think, was the most pivotal of my career. That's where I got to engage with board members, engage with CEOs, and really started to explore on a national level and really international level, what does leadership look like at all sizes of credit unions with all types of missions? And it really helped me shape who I wanted to be and prepared me for this chief role that I now sit in.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot goes into it, right? A lot of experience goes into it. A lot of legwork goes into it. That's very important. Let me talk about what inspired you. What inspired you to take up the current role of leading community engagement for Harborstone, and what do you think about it? I mean, what is your motivation?
When I was at America's First, my role was philanthropy and community relations manager. And that's where I really dug into this need of understanding helping people. And that wasn't just about giving out money. It was also about advocating for access to credit. It was about being accountable to people and ensuring that they were aware about financial services and things of that sort. So when this role opened and it gave the ability to not just be a part of the process, but to really drive the strategy and to stand up something that was really important to the board. When I met Harborstone's president and CEO, Jeff Bullock, and I met their board members, it was easy for me to see these people were so excited about this future that they were trying to create. And they were really committed to standing up some things that were important to me too. And I thought, if this credit union is this ambitious and they are bonding together to make this happen, I want to be a part of that, right? Like, they want to have a different presence in the communities in which they serve. And I want to drive that strategy because I believe I can add value. So it was their excitement really just kind of manifested itself on me and pushed me to go after this role as hard as I could because of what they wanted to accomplish.
Absolutely, that was really summed up well. Uh, so when you're talking about community engagement, right? So what do you think about community engagement, and what does it really mean in practice today? Because it's not a very common role that people do at credit unions. I mean, yeah, credit unions are still far ahead from the rest of the ecosystem. I'm talking about community engagement, but having a community engagement, officer, that's not very, I mean, I wouldn't say that's rare, but that's not very often, right? So what does that really mean in practice? What do you do?
Yes, so in practice, it's like two things, right? So I always say chief impact officer. You see that at a lot of credit unions. That also kind of sums it all up. But I look at community development and community engagement as two separate things, right? And so we've been just explaining what community engagement is. Community engagement is that some of those things are short term, but they're the partnerships that we need to have with the communities that we serve. That's going out and sponsoring events that are happening in the community, serving on boards, and being a part of making decisions for community organizations, and giving our time and talents to drive service in that way. It also is our packing boxes at the food bank and our volunteerism and things of that sort. So that is one element of my role, is to ensure that we have planful community engagement and that we show up appropriately for the communities that we serve, and that we use our volunteer time and service time to other organizations as a part of our impact strategy. However, on the other side of that is the community development piece, which that is the piece that I love about my job. And I think it's also the piece that credit unions were created to drive for Americans. And that is ensuring that people have access to credit, and we can make, whether we're a CDFI institution, which being a CDFI institution allows us to get access to grants so that we can loan deeper and we can reach out to people who need to make their way around. We also use this opportunity to develop our foundation and things of that sort, right? To ensure that we're pouring into these community partners in a unique way. But there are three things that I consider our impact strategy that are development, and that is access to credit and capital. That's awareness about financial wellness, literacy, and all of the fraud things. And that's accountability, creating a safe place for our members to save with us, trust, and hopefully we can get to a place where all members are qualified, right? That is a goal of mine, and I feel like Harborstone wants to do that same thing. State of Washington is a very lovely place to live, but it's also an expensive place to live. So we want to be that trusted partner to walk alongside our members and ensure that they have access to capital and credit.
Absolutely. So that's exactly how you define it, right?
Yes, that's
Now,
it. It's advocacy, right? I look at myself
absolutely.
as as the member's internal advocate, ensuring that no credit score, no person is left behind if they need to save. And if we can't help them, I should have a resource for them.
Enough. Let's talk about actual programs, for lack of better words, when rubber hits the road, right? So, do you want to talk about an initiative or a program, Jimesh, that you are really proud of and you see that there's a measurable impact that has happened?
Oh, absolutely. So we'll go back to my very first role as philanthropy and community relations manager. And I started looking at giving in a unique way. And the reason that I'm going back to that is I'm building these things at Harborstone. I've only been there for a year and a half, so I haven't been able to really measure, but I have in place what I want going, and it's about to stand up. But at Harborstone, we started this program called Community First. And it was from the just noticing that there was kind of this good old boy system of giving, if you want to call it that, right? We gave to the same people every year, didn't move our giving, and it oftentimes didn't open the door for new players. But what we were able to do is raise the staff at America's First Federal Credit Union raised $50,000 that very first year. And in that first year, instead of us giving money to organizations we just always given to anyway, we chose by the organization's vote 3 organizations to give money to, and we just surprised them out of the blue, not knowing that one of our contributions helped an organization go from the red to the black. But those were the kinds of things that we wanted to do, was shock and awe people that we were raising money for them and they were important to us. So that program started out raising $50,000. And after I left America's First, they put a great leader in place who has kept it going. And if I'm not mistaken, here we are 10 years later, and that program is now giving away $150,000 to, I think, 4 organizations, and have created all these things. So I definitely feel proud to sow the seed, but I'm so delighted that the company was so bought into it that they hired someone to continue manage it, and that person has done, her name is Jody. She has done amazing with that program. I still live in those communities myself today, and I get to see the amazing work that they do. So glad that I got to pour into that program to give in a different way.
Sounds perfect. Sounds perfect. Moving on to the next part of it. Right? I mean, I'm a zillennial, right? So I'm a huge fan of simplicity. I mean, how can you offer services that are more palatable, right, to younger generation or people who are more diverse? I'll give a simple example. My financial institution, when I call them up, the IVR still struggles with my accent, and I cannot do a IVR. I mean, I cannot talk to them. I mean, I have to still use touch and then talk to operator, and that's real. That's a real challenge that I have. I cannot change my accent for one IVR of a financial institution. I'll never do it, right? So for sure, right? But credit unions are much more considering than banks. You guys will really do it, I know, because you care for your members. So how do you approach younger generations and diverse groups who may not be, traditionally a part of the credit union movement, but we want to be a part of it, right? So how do you approach that?
You know, what I love about the state of Washington, especially the Pacific Northwest, is it's a melting pot, right? And it's this unique melting pot of, especially a lot of people from Asian cultures, right, who need different things. There are a lot of people who come to the area for tech. And so we have to be prepared to serve these people, whether it's breaking down language barriers, ensuring that, if we can't understand, can we bring people in to interpret and things like that. And so we've been really just thinking through, how do we take our service to the friendliest height? And how do we start to look at what the differences are that young people are expecting? And I think the credit union industry won't survive. I'm so proud. We were looking at our average member age. And for Harborstone, it's 44. And I'm thinking credit unions are reporting that it's just over 50 for the industry as a whole. So we are well below that. And I believe one of the biggest things we've done is not just the inclusion and making sure we're thoughtful of, who our members are and the needs that they have, but we also have created this generational tradition of give Harborstone to your kids, give Harborstone to your grandkids. Our members are loyal savers. And I think we have a lot of history that shows us that teaching the grandparents and the parents to pass that on to their children and bring them into Harborstone along with them has also been something to leverage to our advantage, to make them feel safe and understand that the same way that their parents took care of them and their grandparents took care of their parents, and this is who they banked with, we're also being available to be there in service that way as well. So it's just been really unique in creating this family environment that's inclusive. And just as you said, we need to hear when if our services can't interpret what you're saying. And it's not a thing of you changing, but how can we change in order to address the things that are impacting you?
Absolutely. I understand. Uh, Now, I mean, you are a huge supporter of partnership, right? I mean, so partnerships are often key to impacts because unless you partner with like whoever, be it fintech, be it local community, anyone, right? So not bigger outcomes cannot be achieved without partnership. So what collaborations have been really effective for you in the past so far, be it across your credit union life or across filing or queues? What type of partnerships really work out for you?
It's so unique that you say that. In most credit unions, not most credit unions, all our vendors have to be our partners, right? Looking at your vendors is just though they're another business, right? We don't stand up new programs and services without them offering those things. So if we don't have great conversations with our core, if we're not sitting down talking to them about where we want to go and what needs to happen in the future and how what are they doing to create programs and services of the future, those to me are the biggest partnerships that we have, right? And I love how you've got QSOs and different service organizations just to show how credit unions really bring that cooperative spirit of, look at Valera. If that shows you anything, Valera is our largest QSO. That is the biggest partnership providing credit
For
cards
sure.
for credit unions in that service, right? So when you look at just the heart of credit unions, I look at some of those big partners like Valera and places like QSO that pulls people together and new players who are trying to enter. Those engagements amplify the true spirit of partnership and collaboration within the credit union movement, and it also heightens what I like to call co-opetition, right? Because we're all cooperating with one another, we're competing with one another in some situations, but we're buying from the same vendors. Our partners are all the same, so we just cooperate and compete in a unique way. And I love it because it's all about the spirit of keeping the credit union industry going. And right, that's the business side of things. But then we have these community partnerships. Like we have a partner called Business Impact Northwest. And one of the proudest things is that Harborstone started that. It's a service organization that provides resources to Business Impact Northwest to give loans to women and other minorities who are wanting to enter the small business space. And to know that not only did we give to start it, but we also continue to fund it. We also fund loans for it. And we have partnerships with other credit unions to give to it too. It just heightens what's so great about this industry. We truly do a lot together, but we all still have these separate identities, which partnership just drives and helps this community thrive.
Okay. World is so small. I also work with Valera for the last 5 years.
Exactly right. Like I think that's a partner that no matter where you are, you have engaged with them and they're touching lives in every state, doing so many things. So without that partnership, most of us would not be able to offer good credit card programs, right? That help our members have great benefits. I know in past years people would love credit card programs for Christmas and things like that, right? And we get to do that because of those strong partnerships that we have.
That's very well taken. In the interest of time, I want to ask you a couple of more parting questions. One is obviously, across your journey, you face multiple challenges as a women leader. So what are the typical challenges that you faced? And you talk about, how do you overcome challenges?
Oh my goodness. So I'll say the biggest challenge for me was just managing ambition and emotional intelligence. Right? So I've always been a very ambitious young woman. My parents both went to college and things of that sort, but for different reasons, kind of their growth stopped at a certain point. And I always wanted to grow. And I had a habit at first of getting a job and then thinking about the next job, right? Not enjoying the job that I'm in because I got it, because I got to keep climbing. And I finally met the right leader that said to me, "Hey, can you see how this works against you?" And it was so huge for me to understand how managing my ambition wasn't always about the next thing. It then became, I've got all these wonderful responsibilities. And with these responsibilities, I can grow things and create opportunities for other people. And it helped me really, as one of my leaders used to say, get happier in the same britches I got sad in. Right. And so through getting happy in the same britches I got sad in, I really take a time if I'm in a role, whether it was VP of membership at Q's was really where this got to me. I spent 6 years in that role. And those 6 years were so rewarding because I got to carry forth membership growth that exceeded their membership doubled times 3 during the time that I was there. And I knew that was because of some programs and services we worked. And yes, I was ambitious to a degree, but I also wasn't just like, I need to leave this job. And so I've been so grateful that through emotional intelligence and being able to communicate and finding value in responsibility, I've gotten to a place where I really love what I do. And if it's the last place that, if this is the last role that I have, I'll be happy. I'm not trying to accomplish anything else, which makes being in this role so fulfilling.
Absolutely. Last few weeks in the interest of time is where do you see the credit union movement going? I mean, there have been a lot of conversations across mergers, acquisitions, small shop shutting. I mean, I personally feel that there's a acquisition and I mean M&A is the future. Unless you do that, you cannot keep your bulbs running. And that let's face reality. Because you've got Chase in the backyard, you've got Chime in your backyard eating up your pie of younger customers and HNI customers Chase is taking up. Where do you think is the movement going for?
You know, we've really gone through some challenges that we didn't expect to go through in credit unions with fighting for tax status. That conversation really got loud this past legislative session, right? And as you said, growth and mergers and acquisitions have always happened in credit unions. I think if you look back in history, there was a point where there were 10,000 credit unions, and over time it shrunk now down to, I think, a little under 4,300 credit unions or somewhere in that ballpark. But I think credit unions, in order to sustain, will have to be intentional about purposeful growth. And that's a little bit of M&A, right? And merging and acquiring in places where it makes sense. Like, I'll give you Harborstone's story. We acquired a bank over this last year or 2 years. We've acquired 2. And we didn't just go purchase something to purchase something, right? When I look at us being in Bellingham and Oak Harbor, in the places where these are members who are just like ours. They fit in that CDFI need where they can't go unbanked, they can't go unserved. They are small business leaders who are, one has their small business where they operate on an honor system. And through that honor system, they take what they grow and put the things out there, and people can stop by 24 hours a day. Those type of people need folks to lend to them. So purposeful growth for credit unions is going into emerging and acquiring in areas where you're needed. And I think that should be the stress test, right? It's not, am I building or acquiring to grow, but am I seeking partners? Are partners seeking me who are in places where my services can be needed and the banks can't do, or that fintech can't do? So that's what I mean by purposeful growth. Credit unions will continue to have organic growth, but purposeful growth through M&A is going to be the norm. And I believe we'll have to either partner together to help some organizations sustain, and when they can't sustain, how do we support them? Do we become one? That's when the conversation happens. But it's all about keeping the membership in credit unions. Right.
That's
And
the
what
most
I
important.
mean by that is keep the membership in credit union. Let's grow the market share, but let's not let a credit union sunset and not be able to serve those people. So we've got to be intentional about purposeful growth to keep the members in credit unions.
Today feels like a very refreshing conversation with so much passion you have about our movement, right? I mean, I'm so glad to know you again. So thank you for joining us in today's podcast. It was great chatting with you, and thank you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.